After the lightning and the teacher arrived at the training room, Peter tries to open the door. Peter was a bit surprised by the location. Was this really the place to be a killer? As we know, the other students also looked at Peter's face. The coach introduced to the other students that Sungu was a member of the volunteer club. Yuna was surprised. Why was he here? Yuna stared at Peter's face for a long time. Peter didn't want to be stared at like that. Peter tried to give Yuna a code so that other people wouldn't find out about their collaboration. Peter tried to blink his eyes, but Yuna misinterpreted the meaning of the wink. Peter introduced himself to his new colleagues. The atmosphere of the place is like a normal place, but it turns out it is for killer training. It seems that Peter will have a little trouble with the people who have been in the volunteer club for a long time. Like it or not, Peter had to serve them a welcome that takes the form of a fight. Yuna tries to stop those who want to fight. He thought they would be killed by young Peter. Yuna was even told to leave that place. Yuna tries to save them from danger, but they didn't budge. They thought Peter couldn't fight and instead mocked him. Peter was asked, "Can you fight?" Peter answered, "Yes, just a little I can fight. Maybe around 1,500 times." They started attacking Peter. They thought that this fight would end tragically. They attack using sharp knives. Unexpected thing, that resisted their attack. They thought that they could win against Peter. They really want to become the greatest assassin in the world. He liked the parcel. Peter liked the big photo behind them. They say that there is no place for nepotism babies like you. The fight continued, but no one was injured. Young Peter was starting to get fed up with all this. According to Peter, the dialogue between the two of them was very annoying. Peter had them both attack at the same time. They both thought Peter was crazy. They think that their life has been very hard for 18 years. But they didn't know that Peter had lived for 65 years. The fight stopped when Peter left the place. They thought they could defeat Peter and left in fear from that place. His friends also thought that the two people couldn't fight and couldn't move. Peter, or his fake name at school, Sungu, left the training ground. Yuna apparently followed Peter away. Yuna finally approached Peter. Yuna said that Peter underestimated the volunteer club too much. Peter was confused by Yuna's conversation. It turns out that Yuna always secretly watched over Peter when he was new. Based on Yuna's observations, Peter didn't use his full strength at all. Smart doesn't pour any strength into his hands, through his fists at all. But Peter denied it. He did his best. Yuna is still adamant because she has proof. The proof is that the two of them who are fighting you are very sweaty. Different from you, you don't even sweat at all. Yuna was a little annoyed because Peter didn't want to tell her the truth. According to Yuna, Peter's presence at school was very suspicious. What exactly does Peter want to learn from that school so he can hide his strength? They looked at each other. Then Peter said, "Do you really want to know what my real goal is?" Yuna wanted to know the truth. But it's a shame that Peter only jokingly said that. Peter didn't say his destination at all, and instead went to have lunch. Yuna just stared at Peter leaving. The scene moves to another place, namely a bus terminal. There was a driver who planned to return after sunrise. It turns out he owns the bus and wants to rent out the bus. Then there was someone who apparently wanted to rent the bus for 1 million won. It was a fantastic meeting and the man felt very lucky. After seeing the person who wanted to rent, the man was shocked. He was surprised because there was only one person who wanted to ride his bus. The prospective passenger was carrying a suitcase. He was the only passenger on the bus, but he had a lot of things to carry. Then the driver put the suitcase in the trunk. The driver was surprised because what he was carrying was all suitcases. After loading one of the suitcases, the driver was curious about the contents of the suitcase. There were dozens of coins. The reason was that the bus was even asked to bet. He was asked to guess what was in the suitcase. The driver didn't want to accept the bet, but he knew what was inside the suitcase. According to the driver, the contents of the cover were moving. The scene changes to the teacher, a volunteer club leader. The teacher gathered his students. The teacher said that there is a mission that you must complete. The client is the president of Daeha Group, Choi Ying-chun. You must have heard that what the teacher said. He is one of the biggest sponsors of the Glory Club. Then the base team gets a volunteer certificate, which President Choi recommended. In other words, you will officially become a murderer. The teacher talked about the mission that the students would carry out. The mission is to rescue kidnapped people. Recently, there have been many kidnappings of teenagers. The problem is that one of the kidnapped children is President Choi's son. The students asked why not just call the police. Sir, the teacher answered that you are right. We can call the police. But that's not the problem. The problem is that the pretentious president wants revenge. All you did was save his child. Sir, the teacher also told his students to raise their hands if they wanted to save the child. The students were silent for a long time, wanting to raise their hands. The teacher said that if you don't want to raise your hand, you have to stay here for 2 years to become a real killer. The students are all afraid of that. Adults should do something like that. But the student who had fought Peter yesterday took courage. They both raised their hands. They thought no one dared accept him. Peter and Yuna raised their hands too. They both raised their hands. But they both wanted to fight. Yuna accused Peter of raising his hand too. But Peter raised his hand first, he said. The student who raised his hand immediately wanted to get ready to leave. But the teacher didn't let them go straight away. The teacher has another strategy for that. In his heart, Peter said that he had a great opportunity at that school. Their plan started with the game rights. That's the teacher's strategy for saving kidnapped children. When they arrived at the game, they were immediately greeted with a somber dance. They were surprised because they were wearing bikinis. In a playground like this, whether they like it. Yuna was surprised by their colleague, who kept looking at the somber dancer. Yuna is still thinking about where the kidnapping happened. Meanwhile, Peter was seduced by a girl at that location. Yuna is still curious about what the teacher said. According to the teacher, that is where the kidnapping occurred. The teacher showed a picture of the location where the incident occurred. They were told to paralyze the kidnapper at that place. The kidnapped child was last seen at the Blue Word. Now, who knows where he is and whether he is still alive or not? That's what Yuna is thinking. But in a place this big, can you find him? And there are no instructions. In Yuna's mind, she thought of Peter, who looked calm, as if he already knew everything. Then Peter directed his role to come with him. Where do they go? They went to the playground. They seemed to want to play something. But a servant actually bothered them. They even wanted to fight with the servant. They were told to download an application to find out which places were still empty of visitors. Someone asked Yuna if you wanted to have fun, go into this place. They thought that Yuna had no intention of carrying out this mission. And as we know, those who mock Yuna are playing themselves. They look like little children. Other visitors did not expect that parents like them played like children. Peter and Yuna seemed to be taking the time to play too. They headed to the shooting range. And the results were visible. They all brought gifts. The uncle was shocked even though he had put weight on the doll, so it couldn't fall. Meanwhile, they had gathered and wanted to continue playing. They seemed very enthusiastic. As we can see, they seemed to be going to a playground like that for the first time, because they must have also experienced difficult things in the past. They continued to have fun. Who knows when they'll be able to smile broadly like that again? But they didn't come to have fun. After taking a break from the play area, Yuna stopped and sat on a bench. Yuna looked at the cell phone she was holding. Suddenly, an iPod signal belonging to the kidnapped chairman's son appeared on Yuna's cell phone. Yuna was curious about the signal, but after checking it turned out the location was in the women's toilet. Yuna headed to the toilet and went inside. Slowly he started to open the toilet door, and after arriving at the toilet room, inside there was a woman and the signal came from that woman. Yuna also wondered whether this was really the location of the signal. Yuna tried to ask the woman. Yuna had to try to smile at the woman, so she wouldn't be afraid to see her. But still the woman was afraid and screamed very loudly. It turned out that there was also a man inside, who was the woman's lover. He said to his male friend the woman wanted to hit from behind. Yuna was shocked by the woman's words to her man, even though Yuna was just asking. But the man accused Yuna of wanting to steal her lover's things. Yuna said that it was just a misunderstanding. But the man slapped Yuna and she fell. His female friend said that he didn't need to beat him, but just needed to apologize. But the man still wanted to beat him. Yuna's position was in a pinch. Yuna's friends are looking for her whereabouts. They thought Yuna had eaten somewhere. They also asked Peter, but Peter didn't see it either. Actually, Peter already knew that nothing would happen to Yuna. Back to Yuna's fight. Yuna prepared to counterattack in a tight position. That's right, when the man was about to hit Yuna, Yuna suddenly jumped up and wanted to attack back. The man was made helpless by Yuna. Finally, the man lost to Young. They were forced to say where they got their iPods. Yuna managed to get information about their iPods. Yuna immediately went to her friends. Yuna has been waiting for her friends. Peter suspects somewhere. His friend asked, "What do you mean, Peter?" What Peter meant was a haunted house. Peter explains below why he suspects a haunted house. Because in a very busy place, the best way to kidnap someone is in an inconspicuous place. Peter explained that even though there was a kidnapping, nothing seemed to happen. The reservation page also looks full all day. While the place looks quiet, there are no people. The four of them headed to the haunted house. Then they headed to the haunted house. They tried to open the door. They had to focus on the room. The color red in the house was really scary. Ark and Peter, two big men, didn't dare to be in front even though he said he wanted to be in front. Finally, Peter took the lead. Suddenly, Peter told them to stop. Peter started to become suspicious about the place, because there was absolutely no one in that place, apart from the four of them. Peter warned his friends, so that they were ready to wait for something to come. Their mission will start from here. Suddenly, someone threw poison gas. The poisonous gas began to spread throughout the room. They started to get confused about how to avoid it. We must not give up, because our mission is already halfway to completion, because of their mission in rescuing hostages and eliminating their kidnappers. That's why from the start what we planned was to be their hostage. They finally all fainted. Then, still in a semi-conscious state, they heard the sound of someone's footsteps. In a state of helplessness, they can only surrender. Elsewhere, the teacher was in a hurry and broke down the door to his room. The teacher came in and immediately asked his assistant, "Where are the children?" The assistant answered that he was probably carrying out his mission. The teacher realized that they were actually carrying out a dangerous mission. It was not an ordinary mission. The teacher mentioned the name of someone named Sangdo. He was someone who was proposed as an apostle in the past, but was thrown out because Glory couldn't face it. The assistant said that nothing would happen to them, because they had learned a lot from here. But the teacher had another bad feeling. In a haunted house, Peter and Yuna are in danger. Peter and Yuna are being held captive in a room. Then a man came. The man's name is Sangdu. It turned out that the anesthetic used for anesthesia was a type of chloroform. but usually those affected by bias have their mouths open. Go back to the teacher's place. The teacher said that they had to stop immediately. Because the kidnapper, Mr. Sangdo, is a very hateful person. We must immediately save them from danger, Mr. Sangdo. The teacher is also worried about the condition of his students. When dealing with Mr. Sangdo, the worst possibility was that their legs would be cut off.